A week before my 36th birthday, I almost cancelled a blind date because I was tired of pretending I enjoyed them. My sister had arranged this one after months of telling me I worked too much and spent too many evenings alone. I was a maintenance supervisor for a small apartment complex outside Portland, and most days ended with leaky faucets, broken heaters, and tenants who called at the worst possible times. By Friday nights, all I wanted was takeout and silence. Still, I showed up. What I didn't know was that the woman waiting for me wasn't coming alone. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. The date was supposed to be at a restaurant near the river. It was one of those places with soft lighting, too many hanging plants, and menus printed on thick recycled paper. Rain had been falling all afternoon, leaving the sidewalk shiny and the air smelling like wet pavement. I arrived 10 minutes early and checked my phone 3 times before ordering water. Then I saw her. She stepped through the front door carrying a small pink backpack over one shoulder. Beside her walked a little girl holding a stuffed bear. For a moment, I thought they were heading somewhere else. Instead, they stopped at my table. The woman offered an awkward smile. "Hi, I'm Marisol." The little girl peeked at me from behind her arm. "I'm sorry," Marisol said quietly. "I know this is unusual." I stood there for a second, completely caught off guard. My sister had mentioned nothing about a child, not one word. Marisol looked embarrassed enough already, so I pulled out a chair. "It's okay," I said. "I'm Rowan." The little girl climbed into the seat beside her mother. Her name was Junie. The first 15 minutes felt uncomfortable in a very ordinary way. Not dramatic, just awkward. Marisol kept apologizing. Apparently her babysitter had cancelled less than an hour earlier. Her parents lived in another state, and everyone else she trusted was busy. "I almost stayed home," she admitted. "Honestly, I thought about leaving. Not because of Junie, because I felt unprepared. A blind date was already difficult. A blind date with a child at the table felt like a completely different situation. But then something happened, nothing big. Junie accidentally dropped her spoon. When I picked it up and handed it back, she gave me a serious little nod, as if we had completed an important business transaction. That made me laugh, and somehow the tension eased. As dinner continued, I learned more about Marisol. She worked as a respiratory therapist at a hospital. She often worked overnight shifts and survived on coffee that she admitted was far too strong. She loved old mystery novels and kept a notebook full of recipes. She never had time to cook. She wasn't trying to impress me. That was what stood out. Most dates felt like interviews. This felt like talking to an actual person. Junie occasionally joined the conversation, with observations that made no sense. At one point she announced that penguins probably enjoyed pancakes. Neither Marisol nor I knew how to respond to that. We both laughed anyway. By the end of dinner, I realized 2 hours had passed. When the check arrived, Marisol looked uncomfortable again. "You probably expected a normal date," she said. I shrugged. "I'm not sure there is such a thing." For the first time all evening, she looked relaxed. Outside, rain still drifted down in thin sheets. Beneath the streetlights, we stood near the entrance while Junie tried to jump over puddles. Then Marisol surprised me. "I should tell you something," she said. Her voice carried a different weight now. She explained that Junie's father had left shortly after her 2nd birthday. There was no dramatic story behind it. He simply decided he wasn't ready for family life and slowly disappeared. Since then, Marisol had spent years focusing entirely on raising her daughter. Dating felt impossible. Most men either lost interest when they learned she had a child or treated Junie like an inconvenience. "I don't blame them," she said. "Not everyone signs up for that." I watched Junie balancing carefully along the curb. "You seem to be doing okay." Marisol smiled. "Most days, we exchanged numbers before leaving. I expected maybe a text or two, nothing more. But over the next few weeks, we kept talking. Sometimes about serious things, usually about ordinary life, her stressful hospital shifts, my impossible tenants, the grocery prices we both complained about, the weird satisfaction of finding a parking spot directly in front of your destination. Little things, real things. A month later, she invited me to join them at a community fair, not a date, just an afternoon. Junie spent half the day trying to win a giant stuffed turtle from a ring toss game. She failed repeatedly. After watching her determination, I spent $5 attempting it myself. I failed too. The teenager running. The booth finally handed her a smaller turtle and said, "Close enough." Junie carried that thing everywhere afterward. Months passed. Slowly, carefully, our lives began overlapping. There was no movie-style moment, no grand speech, just a collection of small memories, helping Marisol assemble a bookshelf after a 12-hour shift, teaching Junie how to ride a bike in an empty church parking lot, bringing soup when they both caught the flu, receiving handmade birthday cards covered in crooked drawings. One evening, nearly a year after that blind date, I was fixing a loose cabinet hinge in Marisol's kitchen. Junie sat at the table coloring. Without looking up, she asked, "Are you coming to my school play?" "Of course," I said. She nodded, like she had expected that answer all along. A few minutes later, she added, "Good." That single word stayed with me longer than she probably realized, because it made me understand something. Family doesn't always arrive the way you expect. Sometimes it appears carrying a pink backpack and a stuffed bear. The following spring, Marisol and I got engaged. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet walk beside the river where we had our first date. When I asked her, she laughed before saying yes. A few days later, Junie asked if she could help choose wedding cupcakes. Apparently, that was the responsibility she considered most important. Years later, I still think about that rainy evening. I almost cancelled. Marisol almost stayed home. The babysitter almost didn't cancel. A dozen tiny decisions could have changed the outcome. Instead, 3 strangers shared dinner together. And somehow, that was enough to begin. Comment kindness still exists. If you believe even one good act can change someone's life. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like and share it with someone who still believes kindness matters. The lesson I carry with me is simple. Sometimes the people who enter our lives don't arrive in the way we imagined. If we meet them with patience instead of expectations, we may discover something far more meaningful than what we were looking for in the first place.